Okay, perfect. Here we are today on a call interview with one of our clients, Fabian Pili, owner of a studio in Sardinia. So, Fabian, in this case, I'll hand it over to you for a brief introduction.
Good morning, I'm Fabian and I'm here from the Alta Twing studio in the province of Cagliari.
Okay, so you are the owner of a studio in the province of Cagliari. You are with us for our services. You're in the agency services, so full delegation for, if I'm not mistaken, about a couple of months now, 2 months of service. First of all, I'd like to ask you a few questions so we can provide more information to our audience. So, to start, I'd like to ask why you chose to work with us, what made you decide to trust us, and then, of course, how things have been going for you during this period.
Okay, so let me start by saying that before I decided to turn to you, I was actually very hesitant about the idea of working with agencies, or more generally, about these kinds of professional services offered to tattoo artists or studio owners. This is also because I've already worked with some similar agencies in the past, and unfortunately, on many occasions, I simply wasn't satisfied with the results, or there just wasn't any real positive feedback during our collaboration. The main reason I decided to work with you is principally because I have known Valerio for quite some time. I've been following him and his work for a while, and I've seen his particular way of working, even if only a little from an outsider's perspective. And since I've known him for quite a few years, I have seen some of the positive results he can produce. So ultimately, I wanted to give you a proper try because honestly, without actually trying it for myself, I couldn't really form my own genuine opinion. And so I decided to give it a real shot this time.
Great, great. It's just to clarify, since from the outside it might sound like we've known each other for years. When you say you know me, you just mean you were following us and our content, right?
Yes, that is correct. But if I am not mistaken, I actually reached out to you several years ago. At the very beginning of that process, I had requested some additional information and so on. But at that time, I simply was not quite ready yet to take that important step forward.
Absolutely. That said, being skeptical is completely normal. Many people are skeptical, and in my opinion, they're right to be, especially when it comes to the market. As you said, your skepticism was justified in this case, not just skepticism for its own sake, but because you had tried something, tested out some agencies, and they hadn't delivered results. So it was more than just skepticism, it was completely understandable. Now, in this case, you entrusted yourself to us right from the start. So, how have you been finding things during this period in these first 2 months or so, and especially compared to your previous experiences with other companies, agencies, and so on? What differences have you noticed this time?
Well, reflecting on my journey, it's now been about 3 months since I started. Based on my experience, I can say with certainty that there are significant differences in how one agency operates compared to another. With the previous agencies I worked with, it's clear the only outcome they secured for me, apart from the fact that I was losing money, was a handful of mediocre results. At best, you might see a slight increase in performance, but it was never anything meaningful or lasting. The most disheartening aspect was the actual work they produced. The creative strategies brought in one day could literally be repeated the next, and the day after, continuing without any evolution, creativity, or strategic adjustment. All right, so let's just say that over the course of these past 3 months, there has most definitely been a very substantial increase, and that is the primary reason why I would recommend it.
Great, great. Yes. Let's say the connection might not be very stable. It was a bit choppy, but I understood perfectly what you were saying. So the difference is that others, besides losing money, maybe added likes and followers, but not real clients, not actual money in the bank account. In other words, not paying clients in the studio, right?
Yes, that's right, because even though we were running advertisements and things like that, they weren't really properly planned out. And even though I'm not a professional expert on the subject, I do have a basic understanding of it and I have a general idea of how it works. Since I trusted them, I thought, let's give it a try, let's see what they do. Maybe since it's their job, they know how to handle things, how to run ads, but in the end, the results weren't good.
Okay, okay. In this case, with us, obviously with advice and everything, you're finding it good, etc. You've been with us for about 3 months in terms of total time in the service, but as you've seen, we only count the actual days when the ad campaigns are running, the days of actual service. without including the technical setup time. So paradoxically, we're still within 2 months of actual service. That said, in these 2 months, if you feel like sharing, etc., of course, I have the management system in front of me, but I always talk about extra numbers, and I want to stress that we don't know and don't want to know our clients' total revenue. The numbers we talk about are the ones we add to the existing revenue. So, in these roughly 2 months of service, on average, how much has it brought to your business, your practice, to you, to the residents, and so on in terms of numbers?
So, if I'm not mistaken, right at the very beginning, I do believe we made something in the region of 13,400 euros as additional extra income from that particular venture.
Yes, about 13,500, I think, with one or a few other consultations still pending. So I would say let's be careful and emphasize this because this video can rightly be watched again over time. We're recording this video on August 25th, 2025. So the past 2 months have been full, but we're not talking about a peak period. So 13,500 in 2 months extra, in this case during the summer, I'd say that's not bad. You can always do better, but it's not bad. Are you satisfied with the result? Did you expect it or did you not expect it?
I'm satisfied. To be honest, I expected it actually. Now, as they say, I'm just waiting for the moment to get started again because now, with things picking up after the summer, I'm sure there will be an even greater increase.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, as we discussed strategically, we're heading towards a real boom. In this case, we're really starting up strong again. So that's great. 13,500 in just a couple of summer months is definitely a good result. But as I said, we can do even more. And we're absolutely aiming to do more, both through organic growth and advertising campaigns. And as you know, we've already put the whole plan in place. Now, I don't know if you want to add anything about what you would recommend to other studio owners like yourself, tattoo artists like you, or anyone else who might be skeptical, have doubts, or want to grow but aren't sure whether to trust us or not. Is there anything you'd like to share with them about us?
I would advise studio owners and tattoo artists to try it out before passing judgment on this because having a solid plan to follow really makes a difference. And if you're looking for results, in my opinion, you can achieve them.
Yes, I agree. And besides the plan, obviously having a team is important too. But speaking of that, I'd like to ask you, regardless of the results themselves, which we've already established are good, how are you finding the service itself with the team available and everything else?
No, not at all. Everything is actually going great with the team. Honestly, I'm very happy with how things are going. Everyone is consistently and extremely helpful, and there's certainly no lack of proper organization. We all work together really well as a team without any significant issues whatsoever.
Excellent. Also, because obviously the goal is first and foremost the financial result. Of course, because an investment is only worthwhile if there's a return. Otherwise, it would just be an expense. But secondly, it's clear that it should also help lighten the load for the tattoo artist and studio owner from everything that isn't, in this case, tattooing. So, all the marketing, content creation, editing, and so on, which usually just ends up being a burden for a tattoo artist or studio owner who quite rightly needs to focus on other things. Good.
In fact, ever since I started working with the agency, I've been much freer from all these things like ads, having to prepare graphics, posts, and so on. Just having this freedom already allows you to do so much more, both professionally and let's say a bit in your personal life too. You actually have some free time compared to before when maybe every hour, even after coming home, you'd still be busy preparing all these things.
No, I completely agree. And as I was saying, that's also the goal because, as is the case with any job, with any freelancer, entrepreneur, and so on, obviously time is limited and needs to be managed as best as possible. Then, when you add extra activities in this case, because of course they're necessary for the job and for results, but they aren't actually part of the core work itself, like graphics, posts, DMs, content, calling contacts, and so on, it's clear that having a team to handle all this stuff gives everyone much more freedom. As you said, it lets you focus on your work, your projects, and everything else, but also lets you calmly take care of your personal life, your free time, your family, and so on. So I completely agree, and I'm really glad to hear this feedback. So let's say that if you don't have anything else to add, we can wrap things up with the hope, the conviction, and the awareness that maybe we'll do this interview again in a few months with totally different numbers. What do you think?
Yes, that's fine.
Absolutely perfect. Let's wrap it up. Goodbye, everyone.